Before there were maps, there were two worlds. The world you know, and the shining realm of Qaf, hidden just beyond it. A kingdom of fairies and giants and magic. On the night he was born, an emperor 1,000 miles away woke from a dream. A black crow that stole his crown, and a bright hawk that flew out of the west to win it back. And the wise men said, "That hawk is a child, and he will shake the thrones of the world." That same night, the fairies of Qaf carried the sleeping baby across the sky. They blessed him, and they touched his eyes, so that nothing hidden could ever hide from him again. His name was Hamza. He would become the bravest champion the world had ever seen. Strong as a lion, a warrior against 100 armies, a prince who lost his heart to a princess, and at his side, the cleverest trickster who ever lived. Amir, a thief of 1,000 disguises, and the truest friend a hero ever had. Together, they crossed burning deserts and enchanted mountains. They faced sorcerers and giants and dragons and the demon armies of Qaf. They saw wonders no eye had ever seen. Thrones that flew, cities of gold, gardens that bloomed in the dark, courage, magic, love, and laughter. One of the greatest stories ever told, carried for 1,000 years. And now, it is yours. This is the Dastan of Amir Hamza. Understand the size of things, children, before I tell you what happened at dawn in the Garden of Iram. A dev's thumb is a minaret. A dev's laughter, when it comes, flattens orchards. And courage. Courage has no size at all. That is the joke that God built into the world. And on that morning, the Realm of Qaf was about to hear it told. For out of the pre-dawn dark, the army of nightmares assembled. They came dressed in tiger skin and serpent skin and elephant hide, with bands of iron on limbs, like the legs of siege towers. And they danced, they turned somersaults, they clutched their own beards, they spun upon their tails in a grotesque and thundering carnival, a whole horde of monsters capering in the half-light to unman whoever dared to face them. And across the field, in ranks of gold and silver, stood the fairy host, their kettle drums ready. And on the reviewing height stood two thrones. One was the throne of Sharpal, king of the Paris, and the other set exactly level with it, so that no eye could mistake the honour. The other was the seat of the human champion, the lord of the auspicious conjunction, the man they had begun in that far realm to call Amir Hamza. And Hamza looked out at the somersaulting apocalypse, and he laughed, openly, helplessly, a human the size of their thumbnail, laughing at devs. This, children, was the milk of Qaf coming home to him, the fear that had been burned out of his heart in his cradle, before he had words to name it. And the fairies along the line heard the human laughing at the monsters, and shot by shot, the spine of that whole army straightened. Then the horde parted, and their patriarch came forward, Ahriman, the father of Ifrit himself, 500 yards of him. He walked with a full-grown cypress tree for a staff, and when he spoke, his voice was a rock slide that had somehow learned grammar. "They are calling you the earthquake of Qaf, morsel," he said, looking down from the sky at the tiny figure below. "Earthquakes I have slept through. Now mark this, children, for it is the whole of the man." Even here, even at the foot of that mountain of a creature, Hamza turned first to his king and asked, "Leave to go out?" His courtesies never lapsed. Not in the presence of emperors, not in the presence of monsters. The permission was asked, and it was given. And the Amir walked out alone into the field, one small figure crossing a plain of shadow, and he did not look small in his own eyes for a single step of it. "You misheard me, grandfather," he called up. and he drew his blade, the scorpion of Solomon, a sword he had lifted from the wall of the old king's hall, and it sang as it came free. I am the angel of death. The earthquake is only my footstep. Then he cried out the war cry, God is great, and it broke across the field like a thunderclap. And he struck one stroke, and the great blade passed through that mountain of a neck, the way, in a smaller season, it had passed clean through a poplar tree. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. And then, slowly, slow as an avalanche deciding to fall, the head of Ahriman slid from his shoulders, and the whole vast body of him came down. And the fall of him was not a death, children. It was a landscape event, a wall of dust, birds exploding off 3 horizons at once, and the fairy drums going utterly mad. Ifrit sent out the next champion. The scorpion answered. He sent another. The scorpion answered again. 9 dev chiefs came out to challenge the human, and each entrance was grander than the last, and each ending came quicker, until the 9th of them could barely finish speaking his challenge before the blade had finished its reply. And by the 9th, I am told, that last dev could see the pattern of it plainly, and hesitated on the field. As well he might. Then a silence fell over the whole plain, and under that silence Ifrit himself came walking out. Vast he was, and black bristled, and terrible. But he came under the quiet of a truce, and he did not come to fight. He bent, and he lifted the enormous body of his father across his shoulders, and he carried him from the field. And as he went, he beat a slung drum in a slow, broken rhythm, the funeral wail of the devs. And the whole monstrous horde drew back behind that drumbeat, and left the field to the human. And Hamza watched him go, and there was no triumph in his face, for he too had a father. Remember that, children, when the tale turns dark and the monsters seem only monsters. On that field, the monsters mourned. That night, Iram blazed with celebration. The chiefs of Qaf came with tribute. The wine of Iram flowed. The fairies made music that fell like weather made of glass. And Shapal restored to his throne, radiant again, and now, for the first time, quietly, afraid of losing his miracle, began, very delicately, with his vizier, Abdur Rahman, walking diplomatic escort at his elbow. 9 days, we said, the king murmured. The 9th is spent, and Ifrit still breathes, holed up in his mother's sorceries. A war half won, son of Abdul Muttalib, is a wound half closed. And Hamza answered him, pleasant and utterly immovable. Then let us finish the war, King of Kings, and then the road home. For every single day I spend here is as 18 days to me. And across the length of that feasting hall, unveiled now among her ladies, sat the king's daughter, Asman Pari, the sky fairy, grown to her 18th year, and she was watching the human champion with a directness that no princess of the world below had ever been permitted. And she spoke to her father, but she aimed it the whole length of the hall. Why does the champion of Qaf keep speaking of roads, father? She said. Build him reasons to stay instead. We are not a poor kingdom. And Hamza met her look, and courteous and catastrophic, he smiled back at her, the way a man smiles at a princess across a feast, meaning nothing by it at all. He had no idea, children, and she now had all the idea there was. And so the first stone of a great tragedy was laid in full and open light. And far below all of this, on the other side of the very sky, the drums of Iram became other drums, war drums, beneath the walls of the fort of Mecca. 30,000 torches in the dark. And up on the wall, the faithful archer, Mukbil, was stringing his bow, and the war horse was stamping in the yard, and under a canopy, cross-legged and entirely unbothered, flying his master's serpent banner over his own head, sat the thief, Amar, already counting 30,000 enemies the way another man counts coins into a purse. 18 years, brother, he said to Mukbil, surveying that ocean of torches. And then, after a moment, we're going to need a bigger notebook. So Qaf learned his war name, and the king learned his price, and the princess learned his smile, and mistook it, as princesses will, for a promise. 9 days, the vizier had said. Sleep now, children, and count with me in your dreams how long the 10th day is going to last. For tomorrow I will tell you what the fairy king built to keep his champion, and what a mother's grief can raise up out of the dark of Qaf.